Hey everyone. I had someone ask me to chat about fibromyalgia and nutritional things that we can do. Fibromyalgia, it's sort of like for those of you who have it, I'm sure you absolutely know what it is. And if I say aches and pains, you're going to say, I don't just have aches and pains. So it's when you see a picture of the human body and they sort of show the points, you've got to have like 8 or more of these spots. The spots are all over the body. So as a general the two big things with fibromyalgia are there are massive amounts of aches and pains and lots of fatigue. So they've done lots of studies where they've looked at things like SIBO for a start. So in 80% of people with fibromyalgia, there is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and in 100% of people with chronic fatigue syndrome, there's SIBO. So looking at the gut. So what it is, it's when our small intestine is it's got too many bad bacteria in it. Obviously, we've got 1 to 2 kilos of bacteria in our intestines. Bacteria overall are not a bad thing. They're just not. But one of the things that can help with SIBO is the Fodmap diet. Check that out. So Fodmaps are fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So basically they are the sugars in foods that can create that feeding frenzy in the SIBO. So when you're getting any of that bloating, burping, belching, wind, flatulence, diarrhea, constipation, but very specifically, in your central abdomen, then that can be SIBO. So SIBO can be there, and then there's the vagus nerve around the gut and the brain. So if you're getting gut symptoms and it's making you depressed, that stress response isn't really working. So then your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis isn't working, and it's connected to the gut. So if we've got inflammation in the gut, it can create inflammation in the brain. You can't have depression without inflammation in the brain. So we need to learn to reduce our stress in our lives, and that stress response, get it under control. So once again, not so easy, but taking up things like meditation, yoga, things that walking, sunshine, if you can. So basically just making sure you're looking after yourself stress-wise. There are lots and lots and lots of herbs and lots of really good herbs for stress, things like valerian and romania and passion flower and St. John's wort, and there's just oodles of them. You find a stress formula that carver, so there's lots out there that are really good for calming down, and you've got to work out what's good for you, but finding something that calms your stress response. There's a vitamin and mineral combination I like here in Australia called Carmex. It's a Metagenics product, and what I like about the combination of it is that it calms glutamate in the brain. Glutamate is an excitatory hormone. It stops us from relaxing and it keeps us really, really busy in the brain. That can stop us from sleeping well, so we don't get that rest and relaxation when we're asleep. So they're the sort of, and the other things in Carmex, of course, are magnesium, calcium, potassium, activated B vitamins, taurine to support the liver and kidneys. So but the nice combination is fantastic. And the other thing is with fibromyalgia, sometimes because the bowels are involved, it can cause irritable bowel syndrome. So either IBS-D with diarrhea or IBS-C with constipation. So making sure digestive enzymes are one of the things we're doing, trying to make sure we're drinking purified water, because of course chlorine and fluoride, they're really, really good antibacterials. So when we're drinking them, it can actually kill our gut bugs as well. Looking at things like, SIBO, the Fodmap diet, sort of check that out. And the rule of thumb is that if you do it for, say, 2 weeks, 95% of the time, and you don't get success, that's not you. But you need to do it for a good 2 weeks, because it takes quite a bit of time to unwind inflammation in the gut. Another thing that it can be with, just thinking diet-wise, with fibromyalgia, it can be MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome. So that is when there's lots and lots of reasons why our mast cells, which are white blood cells, why they go a bit haywire. And one of the things, probably the main thing I keep an eye out for, is excess histamine. So because fibromyalgia, one of the things that happens is that the spinal cord is overworking, talking to the body. So for me, and I used to have a low-level fibromyalgia, I haven't had it for a long time. So I tend to always make sure I'm on things like activated turmerics and magnesium supplements and things for my stress. You know, I'm always on a combination of these things. So mast cell activation syndrome, it is one of the things with it is that histamine is building up in the gut, the brain, the uterus, and the spine. Now, histamine attracts EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. So, and EMFs build up in the gut, the brain, the spine, and the testicles in men. So the two of them really interweave in our cell membranes. And if we can't get rid of them on a daily basis, then they can build up. So if you're someone who's had lots of the histamine related things like constant allergies or sinus problems or asthma or hay fever or, you know, those type of things where there's, or welts, eczema, dermatitis, then basically they're the sort of things where your body can be releasing histamine all the time. So there's also a low histamine diet that, and one of the guys who's got heaps of information on it is Dr. Ben Lynch. He's quite fabulous. Check him out on Facebook and YouTube. And the doctor that I really like about MCAS is a chickie babe called Dr. Tanya Dempsey. She's fabulous as well. So I've seen her several times at congresses, you know, in the old days when we used to hop on a plane and go to a conference. Anyway, all good. So one of the things that can happen is our gut isn't working with fibromyalgia, is that fibromyalgia clients tend to have high levels of, chronic fatigue people tend to have high levels of oxidative stress. So basically more damage is happening in the body than what the body can deal with. Okay, so the sort of nutrients that are good for oxidative stress, it's exactly the same stuff we need to have high in our body to help us deal well with COVID, by the way. But it's things like vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium, glutathione, lipoic acid, manganese, copper, zinc, coenzyme Q10. But what you really want to look out for is something like oxygenics, oxidant protection, you know, because supplements that are put together specifically, really nice combinations with lots of vitamin C, because quite often if they've got cofactors, a lot of the cofactors can be antioxidants. So it means you can be, you don't want to get one of all of those. It'll cost you a bomb and it's sort of silly. So get a really nice combination of antioxidants. Because antioxidants help to fight free radical damage, which happens because of oxidative stress. Yeah, so you've got to sort of at some stage check out food intolerances as well. So once again, that's why I tend to start with either, because you can't make people go off everything. But at least if you start, say, a few weeks of Fodmap, see how you feel, a few weeks on the low histamine diet, see how it feels. You'll find something that feels right for you. Remember the old... going back 20, 30 years ago, there was that Dr. Peter Diadamo, I think his name was, and he wrote the blood group diet. So some people do fantastically on the blood group diet. You just don't know what's going to work really well for you. Some people do really well on paleo, autoimmune paleo diet. So what that means is that the body is... So autoimmune paleo is taking out the biggest allergies and it's sticking to things that are natural for the body. So autoimmune paleo, I'm trying to think of the lady's name who has heaps of, there's lots of information out in Australia. We've got Pete Evans. He's a big paleo boy here in Australia. And just today he got hammered on the radio. He was very sensible and clear and concise. And I saw a news article about half an hour after he got off the radio and they said, anti-vax, yada, 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 yada. It's not what he said. Anyway, whatever. So food intolerances, if you end up needing to, what you can do is look for the way to do a grand elimination diet. That's what you need to Google. And what that means is you take out all the major allergens out of your diet, which is equivalent to autoimmune paleo, and then you just, and you do a really low allergenic diet for a couple of weeks, and then one by one you add things in, but you add them in a big way so that you know whether you're having issues with it. So, for example, you've heard me talk about it before. Wheat is one. Genetically modified wheat is inflammatory for most people on the planet. Everyone gets leaky gut from genetically modified wheat. It just depends on how how resilient someone is, how good the gut is, how good the gut bacteria is, as to whether or not they feel it. So if I was sitting next to someone who was a true blue celiac and we had a piece of pizza, I'd get fat overnight, but they might be in the toilet in 12 minutes. So, food intolerances are one of those things that you need to pay attention, but there is a specific way of adding food back in. If you have one bit of toast a day, that might not be enough to actually aggravate you to go, oh, right, there's my symptoms of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Just by the way, most people on the planet don't do well on wheat, so going gluten-free isn't a bad idea anyway, because it's just so inflammatory for most people. It's not a bad idea to look at your blood work for your digestion, your liver, kidneys, that sort of thing. If your liver's struggling, quite often it's upstream at your digestion. So do you need digestive enzymes? Are you getting reflux, heartburn, that sort of thing? That's a sign you've got a lack of digestive enzymes in your system. If you've got a lack of digestive enzymes, you've got to add them in. If you're taking PPIs, protein pump inhibitors, what they do is there's two types of acid, so basically if you're on PPIs, that's in Australia, it's things like Nexium, Pariet, Somac, that sort of thing, then what they do is shut down your ability to break down your proteins and minerals. Okay, so that means that every time you're eating, you're not getting the nutrition out of your foods. And that is a problem long term. So you can actually stay the same weight but be losing your muscle mass and gaining fat mass. So even if you're good weight, you might become, say, sarcopenic obese. Not a good thing. There was a study done, no, name's gone, but basically there's been about 30 years of omega-3s. And omega-3s, it's to do with the percentage of omega-3s on our cell membranes, and then the cell membranes release the ability to reduce pain. So basically the higher the omega-3s in our cell membranes, the more pain mediators we can release. So things like that can be fantastic. So these days, it's only been available in Australia for the last year, but you can get like omega-3 index tests. And basically by doing those, you see the percentage of omega-3s in your cell walls. So if you're down at, say, 2%, and we need a minimum of, say, I think they're estimating anywhere around, say, 6% is good, 8% is better, and above that is, bloody fantastic. So, but a lot of vegans are down around 2%. So it's just one of those things that, once again, it might be a factor. The mitochondria, what can happen as well because of the level of inflammation in the body, because quite often there have been cytokine storms with people with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia because of old either toxins, because of environmental pesticides, all the pesticides and herbicides and that sort of thing. So eating organic can be a thing. Those things can get into the mitochondria and actually stop your body's ability to create energy. So doing a detox, which of course, people with fibro and chronic fatigue, you've got to do it gently, you've got to do it slowly, or you can pop them into bed for 6 months. So you've got to be careful there. That's why I love things like my broc shots, because my broc shots every time, because they're broccoli. So what broccoli, except these are the seeds, obviously, so it's not the same as eating broccoli, but broccoli's good. So basically the sulforaphane in broc shots works on over 200 genes that are anti-inflammatory and pro-detox. So you're actually winding back to the gene. And then make sure you do something like yoga, muscle massage, or even hot stone if you can't stand the massage. Anyway, so they're just a few of my thoughts on fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. See you again soon.